Prussia, an amazing country that can undoubtedly be called German Sparta. She created Germany, and she herself went into oblivion. But how did it happen that the Prussians became Germans, and why Bismarck is the best chancellor of Germany? Let's figure out what's what in the history of Prussia in just 18 minutes. The territory that we know as Prussia was originally inhabited by the people of Estia. Already in the 9th century, the term Estia is replaced by the new ethnonym Prussians. The first mention of the Prussians appears in the work of an anonymous Bavarian geographer. He describes them as a people living east of the Vistula. Tak told about the way of life of Estia. They rarely have swords, more often clubs. They cultivate the land for bread with great patience, collect amber in shallow places and on the very shore. They themselves do not use it at all. Amber is given to merchants in a rough form, without any decoration, and with great surprise they receive a fee for it. Their quarrels were extremely wild, of course by our standards. Weapons, horses, servants, clothes, hunting dogs and hunting birds were burned with the deceased. In general, they burned everything. What was gained by backbreaking work? Why did they do it? The fact is that the afterlife was presented to the Prussians as a mirror image of the living. The funeral cult was conducted by special priestesses, Tulisans and Ligashans, who allegedly observed, to an invisible ordinary mortal, the picture of the transition to the afterlife. The first place in the list of Prussian gods was occupied by Okoperms, the god of heaven and earth, the holder. He is followed by the god of light, Zweigstis, and the god of the sea, Autrips. The next level in the Prussian divine pantheon is occupied by three gods who were especially revered: Hercules, Ptoles, and Putrims. Hercules is the god of thunder and lightning, an angry middle-aged man with a black beard crowned with flames. Ptoles, a dead but pale old man, with a large gray beard, covered with white silk, the god of the underworld and death. His attributes were the dead heads of a man, horse, and cow. Potrimps, beardless, god of rivers, springs, and fruits. The triad of gods correlates with the spatial model of the world: heaven, earth, hell. The Prussian language looked like this. Apparently, the Prussian schoolboy, tired of studying, wrote this to his friend, jokingly hinting at some recent binge. Unfortunately, there is a small dictionary of the Prussian language, and a few books on it were created later. Under the influence of German and Polish, the Prussian language disappears forever from people's memory. In general, the Prussians would have lived in their paganism for hundreds of years, but neighboring states began to accept a new faith, Christianity, which the Prussians gladly rejected. A certain preacher Adalbert arrived on the land of the Prussians from the side Poland. Initially, the Prussians mistook him for a merchant and welcomed him hospitably, but when he began to preach, the Prussians told him to get back to where he came from. In the end, the monk accidentally wandered into the sacred grove of the Prussians. They took it as blasphemy and stabbed the negligent monk with a spear. Since then, they have begun to bother all Christian states, especially Poland, which beat the Vatican's thresholds with complaints to deal with the northern barbarians, who do not give life to the new Polish kingdom. And finally, the Pope gave the go-ahead to the Christianization of wild Prussians. After all, the lands were very rich, in particular with amber. The contractor did not have to be searched for a long time. The Teutonic Knights, who had previously failed to get enough glory and lands for the Pope, became the striking force in the Arctic. By the way, the members of the Brotherhood called their organization Deutscher Ergen, not sparing the adjective Teutonic. It evoked the awareness of contemporaries of the image of a fat burgher with a mug of beer in his hands, and not a brave knight. In 1230, German knights in white robes with black crosses walked through Prussia with fire and sword. The knights consolidated their every step by building stone castles, and first of all, of course, they tried to take over the lower course of the Vistula. Torun appeared here as the first of the order's strongholds. He was followed by Helno, Marie Inverter, Elbing, and so on. The Prussians defended stubbornly, but could not resist the new force, which enjoyed the superiority of military art, weapons, and unity of action. After 50 years, the Prussians were finished, or rather, their state, if it can be called such. The Prussians themselves were pushed to the periphery. There was no need to kill them, because who needs land without people? The Teutonic Knights were so carried away by the conquest of Prussia that they had the audacity to create their residence in the middle of the Prussian lands. From that moment on, thugs of all stripes from Germany, Poland, Lithuania, the Netherlands and France left for Prussia. To carry the banner of the Lord. Further north, the Prussians, of course, rebelled, but the iron hand of the knights kept them in check. It is known that the Teutonic Order had a fairly simple organization of the supreme power of the Council of the Order, the General Chapter elected the Grand Master. To ensure his activities, the Grand Master formed a small council which included 5 senior officials of the Order, Grand Commander, Deputy Master, Grand Marshal, Minister of Defense, Senior Hospitaller, Minister of Health, Senior Quartermaster. It is a pity that there is no such position in our time. His task was to supply the order with food, clothing, and other household items. The chief treasurer will finish the 5. The territory conquered by the order was too large for the Crusaders themselves to develop. Initially, the calculation was made on attracting colonists from Germany, but apart from the thugs, no one really wanted to come. In 100 years, only about 30,000 people. So the order began to recruit indigenous Prussians as a labor force that helped them build majestic castles and cities. Some well-born Prussians were not averse to trying on the equipment of the Teutonic Tsar. As a result, the Koran population began to settle down, forget their faith, language, and traditions, and Prussia slowly began to become native German. Sensing the benefits, German merchants and artisans moved to Königsberg in order to start a new life, away from their competitors. In the 14th century, the trading city became rich, and various land-based money settled in the pockets of residents, up to Middle Eastern dirhams. This attracted money changers to the Prussian lands, who were well versed in the full weight of coins, and sometimes shamelessly fed inexperienced customers. Over time, the Teutonic Order turned from an ally of the Polish kings into their enemy, taking control at the beginning. 14th century, port city of Gdansk spread over the countryside. The threat to Poland from the Prussians has gone down in history. In the summer of 1410, the Polish king Jagiella joined forces with the troops of the Grand Duke of Lithuania. Eastern Slovenes joined the combined Polish-Lithuanian army. Their detachments were replenished from Smolensk, Polotsk, Gallic, Kiev, and other cities, as well as Czech detachments and Tatar cavalry. The Allied army numbered about 100,000 people. At the same time, the forces of the order were almost twice as small. The previously invincible Teutons fought until their last breath. One part was killed, the other was captured. Having suffered enormous losses, the forces of the order declined. As a result of the conflict, the Grand Magister recognized himself as a marshal of the Polish crown and renounced his claim to Danzig with the surrounding lands. Prussia itself was divided into 2 parts. The west, called Royal Prussia, together with Gdansk, went under the rule of the Polish king. In the east, by 1525, the Dzierżawstwo was formed. Prussia, where Königsberg received the capital status,